This lesson, we will focus on how to solve equations involving fractions. So look at example 1a. There is a 1 over 3 as a fraction. So the common denominator right now is going to be a 3 because 3 is the only one we see in the denominator. So in order to get rid of the denominator of 3, I have to multiply 3 on both sides. So how do I write it? I will write like this. So let's copy down the question first. 6 equals to 1 over 3 multiplied by a plus x. So I'm going to times by a 3. I'm going to times by a 3. When I multiply the 3 on the left-hand side, I get 6 times by 3, which is 18. On the right-hand side, let's take a look. 1 over 3 and times by 3 will become a 1. So you're left with a plus x. The next thing you do is you isolate the x, so subtract a on both sides. So you have 10 equals to x. Now, there is another way to do it is, let's write this down again. When you see a plus x, it's actually times by a plus x over 1. And I can rewrite it again. I can write 6 equals to one big fraction. Numerator times by numerator. That means 1 times by a plus x on the numerator, which is a plus x. And then I can do 3 times by 1, denominator times by denominator, which you're going to get a 3. And I'm going to change the 6 into a fraction as well. So 6 is 6 divided by 1. But this is an equation, so it's a balanced equation. That means in order for them to be equal, I want to make sure they have the same denominators. So I'm going to times by 3 on the left. The 1 times by 3 will become a common denominator of 3. So 6 has to times by 3 as well. So you get 18 over 3 equals to a plus x over 3. Since they are equal and they have the same denominator, that implies the numerator must be the same. So 18 equals a plus x, and you subtract a on both sides to isolate for x, so x equals to 10. Therefore, x equals to 10. Okay, now let's look at part B now. Same thing again. I'm going to write 3y minus 5 over 4. And change the 7 into a fraction, so that, which is 7 over 1. So between 1 and 4, the common denominator is 4. So I'm going to times by 4 to the 1 and times by 4 to the 7. So I'm going to have 3y minus 5 over 4 equals to 28 over 4. Since they have the same denominator and the equations are equal, that means the numerator must be the same thing. So we say this implies the numerator must be the same. And then you want to get rid of the brackets by using distributive property. 3 times by y becomes 3y. 3 times by negative 5, negative 15 equals to 28. And you want to isolate for y. You add 15 on both sides. You got 3y equals to 43. That's divided by 3 on both sides. So y equals to 43 over 3. And this is your final answer. All right, now let's look at example 2. Example 2 now, they have two fractions, one fraction on each side of the equal sign. So what do you have to do? Same thing again. You find the common denominator. So the common denominator between 3 and 5 is 15. So that means I have to times by 5 here. And then I have to times by 5 here too. And this fraction I have to times by 3. So this one has to times by 3. So let's write it properly now. So we do 5 bracket x plus 2 over 15 equals to 3 bracket x minus 4 bracket means multiplication over 15. Since they have the same denominator now and they are equal, that means this implies the numerator must be the same. So 5x plus 2 equals to 3x minus 4. And we have to get out. We have to take out the brackets. So we have to use distributive property using multiplication to remove the brackets. So 5 times by x, 5x. 5 times by 2, positive 10. 3 times by x, 3x. 3 times by negative 4, negative 12. And then we have to isolate the variables again. So we want to remove the positive 10 on the left. So minus 10 on both sides. You will have 5x equals to 3x minus 22. And you want to remove the 3x on the right. So we say subtract 3x, subtract 3x. So you get 2x equals to negative 22. And then that's isolate for x. That means divided by 2 on both sides. You get x equals to negative 11. Therefore, x equals negative 11. Next, let's look at part B. You have 1 over 3 times by 2x minus 5 equals to 3 over 4 times by x minus 2. Remember, we want to write as a fraction equals a fraction. So 1 over 3 times by 2x minus 5 really means 2x minus 5 over 1. And 3 over 4 times by x minus 2 means x minus 2 over 1. Numerator times by numerator, that means 2x minus 5 over 3 times by 1, which is 3, equals to 3 times by x minus 2 over 4 times by 1, which is 4. And we're going to find the common denominator between those two fractions. The common denominator between them will be 12. 3 and 4, 3 times by 4 is 12. So the first fraction on the left-hand side, the denominator needs to be 12. That means I have to times by a 4. So if you times by a 4 on the denominator, that means you have to times by a 4 onto the numerator. So that becomes 4 times by 2x minus 5 equals to 12. Next one. You have a 4 in the denominator, but in order to become a 12, you have to times by a 3. So I have to times by a 3 on the numerator. Then becomes 3 times by 3 times by x minus 2 over 12. So, since they are equal, they are balanced, and they have the same denominator, that means the numerator must be the same. So this implies 4 2x minus 5 equals to 3 times by x minus 2. Then I will simplify further first. I will do 2x minus 5 equals to 3 times by 3 is 9. And that's use distributive property to take out the brackets. So 4 times by 2 becomes 8x. And 4 times by negative 5 becomes negative 20. Equals to 9 times by x is 9x. 9 times by negative 2 is negative 18. And that's remove the negative 20 on the left-hand side by adding a 20 on both sides. So you will get 8x equals 9x plus 2. Next one, I want to remove the x on the right. That means I subtract 9x on both sides of the equation. You'll get negative x equals to 2. And that's remove the negative 1 in front of the x by dividing by negative 1 on both sides. You'll get x equals negative 2. And that will be your final answer. Let's move on to part C. Part C, you will see there are many different terms. So the first thing I do is I will change every single term into a fraction. But look at the first term. 1 over 5x means 1 over 5 times by x over 1. Numerator times by numerator, 1 times by x is just x. 5 times by 1 is 5. So just keep that in mind. 1 over 5x means x over 5. So let's change everything to fraction now. So that means x over 5 plus 2 over 3 minus 2 over 1 equals to x over 1 minus 2 over 5. And I'm going to change everything into a common denominator. So between 5 and 3 and 1, the common denominator is going to be 15. That means this term the first term has to times by 3. The second term has to times by 5. The third term has to times by 15. The next one has to times by 15. And the last one has to times by 3. So let's take a look what happened now. So this is going to be 15 plus a 15 minus a 15 equals to 15 minus 15. Now I change every single denominator into 15 now. So let's look at the numerator. 3 times by x, 3x. 2 times by 5, 10. 2 times by 15, 30. X times by 15, 15x. 2 times by 3, 6. So now they are equal. They have the same denominators. That means the numerator must be equal to each other. So this implies 3x plus 10 minus 30 equals to 15x minus 6. So you will have 3x minus 20 equals to 15x minus 6. Now, we want to isolate x now. When we want to isolate the x, we cannot have any numbers on the left-hand side. So I add a 20 on both sides first. So I will get 3x equals to 15x plus 14. And I'm going to subtract 15x on both sides to remove the x on the right. I will get negative 12x equals to 14. Next thing we do is we want to divide it by negative 12 to find what x is. So x will become negative 14 over 12, and that's reduced then. So 14 and 12, they both can divide by 2. So x will become negative 7 over 6, and that's your final answer. For D, you have 3 fractions now, and you have to find the common denominator between 5 and 10. So I know the common denominator will be 10 as the least common denominator. I don't want to use 50 because that number is way too big. So I'm going to change everything into 10 now. So the first fraction, that's already over 10, so you don't need to change anything. The second fraction, if I need to change the common denominator, change the denominator 5 into a 10, I have to times by a 2. That means the numerator has to times by 2. So 2 bracket 3x plus 3 equals to negative 1 over 10. Now, you have an equation. They are equal. They have the same denominators. That means the numerator must be the same. So this implies 10x minus 3 minus 2, 3x plus 3 equals negative 1. The next thing you do is you have to use the distributive property to remove the brackets. So 10x minus 3, so that's negative 2 times by 3 will be negative 6x. Negative 2 times by positive 3, negative 6 equals to negative 1. And simplified it by collecting the like terms. So 10x minus 6x, you will get 4x. And negative 3 minus 6 will become negative 9 equals to negative 1. The next thing we do is we want to isolate for the variable. So I add a 9 on both sides to remove the negative 9 from the left. So you will get 4x equals to 8. So x equals to 2. Therefore, x equals to 2. For example 3, the equation becomes more complex. So I want you to look at it as a bigger picture. So there's a numerator, there's a denominator. So it's divided by 5. So in order to remove the denominator, I have to times by 5 on both sides. So I'm going to show you how I write it. I will do like this. 3x over 2 plus 4. That's the numerator. Divided by 5 equals to 2. So I'm going to do is times by 5 on both sides. So I times by a 5 here. So 5 goes with a 5. That becomes a 1. So then you're left with 3x over 2 plus 4 equals to 2 times by 5, which is 10. All right, so now you can either change everything to a fraction and to have a common denominator of 2, or I can isolate that x term. So I can remove the 4 on both sides first. And I will get 3x over 2 equals to 10 minus 4 is going to be 6. And in order to get rid of the division of 2, I can times by 2 again. And I times by 2. I can remove the 2. I will get 3x equals to 12. And that's remove the 3. So I'm going to divide it by 3 on both sides. So I get x equals to 4. Now, for part B, you have a 4 times by bracket equals to 8. So the first thing you can do is I can divide it by 4 on both sides. So 4 divided by 4, it becomes 1. So you're left with 2x minus 3 over 7 plus 5 over 3 equals to 8 divided by 4 is 2. Next one, I want to remove the division of 3. So I times by a 3. So I times by a 3. And 3 can divide by 3. So I left with 2x minus 3 over 7 plus 5 equals to 6. And let's remove 5 on both sides by subtracting it. So 2x minus 3 over 7 equals to 1. And let's remove the 7 in the denominator. That means multiply by 7. So 7 divided by 7 is 0. So 2x minus 3 equals to 7. And you add a 3 on both sides. You get 2x equals to 10. And divided by 2 on both sides, you get x equals to 5. And that's your final answer. Moving on to C. So you will see something plus 4 equals to 7. So the first thing I do is I subtract 4 on this side. I subtract 4 on the other side. I will get 2 bracket 3x plus 4 over 5 minus 1 over 3 equals to 3. And let's get rid of the denominator. So that's times by a 3. That's times by a 3. So 3 goes into 3, becomes a 1. And you will have 2 bracket 3x plus 4 over 5 minus 1 equals to 3 times by 3, which is 9. And let's remove the negative 1 on both sides, adding a 1 on both sides. You get 2, 3x plus 4 over 5 equals to 10. And because that's a 2, multiply the bracket. So I'm going to divide it by 2 on both sides to remove the 2. So 2 divided by 2, it becomes a 1. So that means 3x plus 4 over 5 equals to 5. And I want to get rid of the denominator 5. So I times by 5 again. I got 3x plus 4 equals to 25. And let's remove the 4 on both sides. Subtract 4 on both sides. You get 3x equals to 21. Dividing by 3 on both sides to find x. Therefore, x equals to 7. For part D, this is the most challenging one. Remember, you are solving for x. X is the only variable you have. So first of all, we have to remove the positive h on the left. So you have this. E bracket bx plus c over d plus f over g equals to I minus h. The next one is I want to remove the denominator of g. That means I have to multiply by g on both sides. So if I multiply by g on this side, I need to multiply by g on the other side. So g and g, they can divide each other. So you get e bx plus c over d plus f equals to g times I minus h. It doesn't really matter you want to put the g at the end or g in the front, but just remember, if you put the brackets around it, it's fine. And next one is I have to remove the f. That means I have to subtract f here, I have to subtract f here, right? So it will become e bx plus c over d equals to g I minus h minus f. And next one, because I want to remove the e, so I have to divide it by e on both sides. So e can divide by the e. And then you will have bx plus c over d equals to g I minus h minus f over e. And next thing is I want to get rid of denominator of d. So you have to times by a d here. So I have to times by a d. Times by a d means d over 1, right? So you have bx plus c equals to d, pink bracket, and you do g I minus h minus f, close the pink bracket, over e. And I have to remove the c on both sides. So minus c here. So you get bx equals to d g I minus h minus f over e minus c. And how do you find x? You have to divide it by b on every single term. Divided by b, divided by b, and divided by b. So, what's our final answer? X equals to d, open bracket, g, I minus h minus f, close bracket, over EB minus C over B. That will be your final answer.